Welcome to Reputation Revolution. This is the podcast where we help individuals like you to establish your voice in the marketplace, enhance the credibility of that voice, extend the reach of your story and your message, and finally, extract value from your efforts in building a meaningful personal brand that's both recognized and respected. Now, on with the show.
Revolution show, the live show. This is the live show, our first one with myself, Trevor Young, and Brendan Keogh, our first live Reputation Revolution show for 2023. And before we get going, Brendan, I'll just say this episode is brought to you by the Credible Authority Academy.
Oh, and Trevor, can I say thank you on behalf of all of the your network for doing this great work, the Credible Authority Academy. Long time coming, and it's great to see it up and running.
It has. So for people who might want to know what the Credible Authority Academy, just go to credibleauthority.com. It's a community. We have live Q&As, we have master classes, and the course is actually a 12-week course as well. So at time of recording this, and for another few days, it's only $36 a month. And you get access to a course that I originally had up for sale for $550. So, look, it's something that's, I think, having worked with a lot of experts, owners of businesses, owners of expertise-based businesses, I will say. I've done group coaching programs and sort of been validating these ideas and sharpening it over a period of years now. So I'm really rapt to see where, to get it off the ground and to help people. Because I think one thing that, people have got all this knowledge and expertise, but one thing that I know for certain after, a decade or more, I've been doing this for a lot more than a decade, but let's just say a decade with social media and content and blogging and everything, a decade and a half, people don't know, they struggle. They want to get out there, they want to put their flag in the ground, they want to have a say, and provide some thought leadership and build their personal brand, but also help others with their content. But knowing where to start is the biggest barrier.
Absolutely, and having support along the way to guide you as you're implementing these things, I think, is invaluable. Because it's one thing to know how to do it, but to get some feedback and support along the way is huge.
And no one knows everything. I mean, these things are changing so much. So you're looking at owned media. So, which channels should you be on? What sort of content should you be creating? Social media, which channels should be on? How do you get the best out of the social channels that you're on? Earned media, so going out and getting, speaking gigs is earned media, and being on podcasts is earned media, and getting a guest blog or an opinion piece in an industry trade journal. And if they're not integrated, then you're doing yourself a disservice. So this is for credible people who are serious and who have, got the runs on the board. And in my experience, they're sometimes the ones who are least likely to put themselves out. They want to, but they say, but I'm known for, what are we known for? What do I create content about? Which channel should I be on? And then nothing happens.
And talk about no one knows everything. I think a lot of today's topic will really reinforce that and highlight that.
Yeah, indeed. So for those who haven't seen us go live or these particular episodes that we've been doing, so I run a podcast called Reputation Revolution. Several weeks back, we celebrated our 250th episode, and cue bells and whistles and birthday cakes and all of that, and which was terrific. But when I do an interview with an expert or a thought leader or someone who's a case study or someone who's, really got expertise in this particular area that's relevant to building that personal brand and reputation, then the next week, Brendan Keogh and I, Brendan, this one, which way? That way. Brendan, who's a content coach and a podcast producer, an audiobook producer as well, man of many talents, we dissect that previous episode and dissect it, recap it, extrapolate out on it, and go off on tangents as well. So this is the first one we're doing this year, and it's going to be very LinkedIn focused, mainly around the episode I did a couple of weeks back with Richard Blom, all about the LinkedIn algorithm report, and there was a lot of meat in that. So if being on LinkedIn is really important to you, I do recommend that you go back and have a listen to that, and we'll touch on some of those points right now. And then we had the follow-up episode to that one. Brendan and I couldn't get together, so I put up another podcast episode with Michelle B. Griffin and Michelle J. Raymond, aka Michelle Squared, and we talked about their new book, the LinkedIn branding book. So we might touch on that if we've got a bit of time. But there was so much coming out of the Richard van der Blom interview. Brendan, kick us off. You've had a listen. What were your thoughts straight up?
Frustration, Trevor.
With Richard himself?
No, Richard's doing great work. Really appreciate him doing the heavy lifting of doing the analysis of all the ins and outs of the algorithm. But just look, I'm probably only speaking to a very small subset of your very engaged, educated audience. But I'm speaking for those who find it hard to keep up with the changes and what's in, what's out, newsletters are out now, and all of the, and the way they're tweaking things and the nuances are hard.
Did you say twerking or tweaking?
A bit of both, but
but it is. Do the LinkedIn twerk.
It's hard to keep up, and particularly perhaps for people who are getting started, it can be a bit demotivating. You're thinking, well, I don't even. You talked in the interview about everyone experiencing a lack of a drop in reach, and so it can be it can be confusing and a bit overwhelming. But what was so important is for people like me who aren't as nuanced in the stats and the do this and follow this step. It's it's so important to be aware of it. So even though I might not like it. It was great to really listen to you guys pick it apart, and I guess what I was trying to focus on was, rather than trying to be the top of the class in everything, what are the aspects of these changes and things that Richard has identified that form good social media hygiene? How can we build it into what you should normally do all the time? And one example that comes off the top of my head was. Richard talked about after you post, it's important to hang around for a bit because the algorithm will know that they want to keep you in LinkedIn, and so the idea, don't just post and run. You should hang around a bit. Now, to me, that makes sense in the sense of you going in and posting is a great opportunity to while you're there to look at other people's work, to engage with others, to connect with others. So. That's something I can I can build into my daily LinkedIn habits of do a post, but then hang around and use that time to engage with others, and that's how you can work the algorithm without try to game it.
Yeah. So just backtrack a little bit. So Richard's report I think it's the fourth one, if I recall. I'm just a bit hazy on that. Fourth one he's done. It's about 50 pages. I mean, it's very deep, and they've done a lot of research. And so this is all around the algorithm, and of course things change. And my message, of course, around algorithms and things is, you can chase them all you like, but it's better to be aware of some of the things and incorporate them into your day-to-day without trying to continually, as you say, gaming the system. Just being aware of what some of the main things which might help your reach, but still have your own plan and know what you want to stand for and the types of content that won't change. Delivering good value with your content. Yes, your reach might go down as it's gone down with pretty much every social media channel, and now it's doing that on LinkedIn. But it's still, he did say that only 5.2% of LinkedIn members are creating content. So you could still, there's still a great opportunity to be standing out with your content. But let's go back to those tips, and we'll go through a few of them. So one thing that Richard said was that if you post, put up a post on LinkedIn, then stick around and engage with other people, because LinkedIn wants you to stay on the platform. So if you can get on there and spend a bit of time with people, that's fantastic. Don't just post and run. So the key there really is, I mean, I think that this is a good discipline for people who are, they're creating content and they're posting, but they're not engaging with anyone anyway. So I think this is a really good thing to do anyway. But if that helps give you a little bit of additional reach because LinkedIn wants you to stay on the platform, then that's a good thing.
Absolutely. And another related tip from Richard was around sharing third-party content. That is something that everyone should kind of work towards doing, and being more of a curator, so that people, for example, might look at you, Trevor, and with you sharing some really influential and interesting content from others, as well as doing your own. People don't need to throw the net as far, or they'll be more likely to check you out because they know that it's not just you saying what you think, you're bringing others into the conversation who are really, you've already vetted and are saying really interesting things, and are thought leaders in their own right. So yeah, it's all related to that as well.
But isn't it, I mean, LinkedIn's also about, it's not just let's get as many followers as possible. I know people think that that's the success, but it's actually, having a deeper level of engagement with the right people. And I think that if you posted and then you just went scrolling, you're going to have a bit of an issue because you might then get sidetracked and might not be able to find anything. What Richard suggests, and I think this is a really good thing, I've started to do it myself, he says, you can ring people's bell. There's a bell on the people's profile, and you will then, if there's someone that you like their content ongoing, you ring their bell, and therefore under your notifications, whenever that person posts, you'll be notified of it. So if you're doing that with a number of people, then hopefully there's some notifications there, and you don't have to just go searching, but you can go straight to the source of people whose content you normally like anyway. So if you did that amongst 10 to 20 people who are regular posters of content or publishers of content on their feed, then you'll get access to that and notified, and you can go, okay, so I post, I put my own post up, and then I go spend the next 10 minutes or so reading other people's posts.
Now I'm my internet's dropping out. I missed the last bit of what you just said there. One thing that to go on further from the ringing the bell, of the bookmarking the profiles. So I don't know if you
That's
if you did touch on
that.
Yeah.
So he bookmarks a whole stack of people's profiles and then goes straight to those profiles, reads them, and then engages.
That was genius, and you hit the nail on the head when you kind of talked about how that's going to save you doom scrolling, because it is so easy to get sucked in as you try and engage with content, and just haphazardly, if you're just scrolling through, you're just off on little rabbit holes. If you can be more efficient in knowing who exactly you want to follow and engaging with those right people, you save yourself time, you're more effective, you're learning more, and you're then sharing really great content. You've got confidence that as you share and ingratiate yourself with those people, it's really good content that you're providing.
Yep. So a couple of other things that Richard talked about. He said one big change that they've noticed is that if you're going through your feed now and you're following certain types of people or whatever, and they're active, there's an aggregation of posts by the one author. So if you're in the feed, you might see 4 or 5 different posts from that one author, whereas previously you might have seen one and none for ages. And so there's more aggregation or bunching of content of posts from other people. So if you are a regular, a content creator, and and we're talking about I think he called it the 1%. If you're someone who's regular and building a profile, and you're out there and you're active and you're doing a lot, and people are following you, then there's every chance they'll see more of your content in their feed. And that's why some people, active content creators, are getting greater reach, but 99% of people are getting less reach.
Mm-hmm. He also touched on, he recommended if you're doing more than 2 posts a week to use creator mode.
Yep.
And again, that's good hygiene. If you can do 2 posts a week, which I think is manageable for most people, that's something we should be working to. So if you engage creator mode, which provides those other benefits, he did mention 3 to 4 times a week of ideal frequency. Again, if you can aspire to that, even if you don't hit it every week, that's really good habits to be building. So the fact that fits in with what the algorithm's after and how you can maximize that, I think that's another benefit.
Yeah, I think 3 to 4 times is really good. I mean, if you can do daily, that's fine, but don't do more than twice a day. So it's, yes, we want more, but don't do too much more. So I think the 3 to 4 for most people is a good one. If you're doing once or twice, better than doing none. But obviously, if you double that output, you're going to be better served. And content creator mode is a simple thing for people to do. And it comes with a number of benefits, and people can follow you rather than connect with you. And this was an interesting thing where, most people talk about connections, but now we have followers. And if you, so people might not be aware that if you publish a post, it doesn't go to everyone straight away. It's shown to maybe, what did he say, about 8%? Maybe
8%.
8%, I thought he said, was a small amount of people get the first look at a post, and if there's traction on that in terms of engagement, then LinkedIn will kick it further along. But if there's not, then you're going to get low reach on that post. And what he did say, which I found fascinating, was that if you've just got connections, right? You've just got connections, and you go out to that small percentage of connections. Hopefully those connections are engaged with your content, and that will help kick it along, and you'll get greater reach. But he said that followers, people who have opted to follow you versus connect with you, they're more likely to engage with your content. So if you're a content creator and you've got followers and connections, that first small sample that goes out will go out to a mix of connections and followers, which should, by rights, increase your engagement if your followers are of the type who are engaging more with content. Does that make sense?
No, it does, and it's pretty involved. One of the bits of advice he had, which I think he said he does himself on occasion, probably not enough, but is to let people know that, hey, I've done this post. Can you get involved? Now, my question to you is, well, not everyone's going to actually see that in so you might be asking people to engage on a post that they don't actually see. Is that?
Yeah.
In their feed.
Oh, yeah, they won't see it in the feed. You probably have to direct them to it, or
got it.
Send them the link to it or whatever. And he said he does that sparingly when it's an important post. And I've done that in the past, but you don't want to be doing it all the time.
Yeah.
It might be one every 20, 50 posts or something. Yeah. It's one where you want a bit of love early to get it going. So I'd save that. And we're not talking about pods. We're not talking about engagement pods or anything like this. This is just going to some friendlies and say, look, can you have a look at this? And this post, it's pretty important for me to get it out there and get a bit of reach on it. So that's probably the time to call in some favors. But of course, if you're doing it for other people as well, then it's a bit of a quid pro quo. And that's just life, isn't it? It's the same if you're on Twitter. Hey mate, do you mind giving this a bit of a retweet or something amongst friends? But you do it sparingly. And of course, if you're always helping others as well, it's not a big deal. So it's worth looking at, but it's not an engagement pod that everyone just engages on each other's trying to game the system, and that's just a no-no. And if you get caught doing that, naughty.
The other interesting one, I guess it's already made me change my habits of the liking versus commenting, and the fact that whichever one you do first has a weight. And correct me if I'm wrong, which will probably, but if you like first, that has a lower weighting, but that's the weighting that applies. But if you comment first, that has a higher weighting, and so therefore his advice is he either chooses, it's either or really, and if it's a significant one, he will comment, and that that'll boost, that'll support the algorithm.
Yep.
So that was new to me.
Of other people's content. Yeah. Now let's go to links, because I was very keen to talk to Richard about links. This is when you put in an external link in your post. So if you're sharing someone else's content, well then, another, hey, I've listened to this podcast, or I've read this blog post, or you're promoting your own blog post, or an announcement, your company has made, and there's a link in there. Those don't do, there's no doubt, this is what I've experienced, they don't do as well. Now, LinkedIn clearly, won't come out and say that, but one of the, this has been an ongoing thing, and it's the same with Facebook. It's the same with all of them, really. Basically, the algorithm doesn't favor posts with external links. So I guess the key there is a couple of points on that one. Richard sort of, there's, yes, they don't want you leaving the platform. So there's LinkedIn saying, we don't want you to leave the platform. And they put in, if you click on a link now, if you click on a link now on LinkedIn, an external link, you'll go to another page that says, are you sure you want to leave? And make no bones about that. That's LinkedIn's way of, hey, we want you back here, not over there. And so there's that side of things. But also he also suggested that, people on LinkedIn, they don't want to click on external links, so they're not clicking on it and they're not engaging as much. So maybe that's a reason why, and that's pretty valid as well. So he thought, and I'm pretty much on board with this, it's probably a bit of both. LinkedIn doesn't want you to leave the thing, and so we'll not favor you as much. And but people might not want to click any more on that anyway. Those days are gone.
LinkedIn not linked out, hey?
How long have you been sitting on that one?
But it's hard. So at the moment, I'm doing a lot of, I find myself mostly, working on LinkedIn for company pages, and just most of the time it's linking to some piece of content that you. So it undermines most of your efforts, and
it's a tough one. I think. It doesn't. I don't think it should stop you from doing it. I don't think it should stop you from curating content and sharing other people's content and linking. Where there's a link involved. I think you should still do that. You've just got to be cognizant that this is going to, your reach, in all likelihood, will be, will be reduced. Now, if you put a post out with a link on and people go nuts on it and they all, are liking it and engaging with it, well, then you should be okay. But they're just some of the things to be aware of. If that's all you do, then you'll probably notice you won't be getting as much reach. And this is where it's a bit of a, let's say it's a game, and I'm using quotes. Richard didn't say this, I'm saying this, but people are always trying to find a workaround, right? So for a long period of time, what you do is you'd post it and then you'd go in and it's published, then you'd go back in and then you'd edit it and then you'd whack the link in. And that's not working anymore. LinkedIn's on top of that one as well. So he said, didn't he? Don't go back. You don't post and then go back and edit. If you've made a mistake, let it run for a little bit and then go in later and edit it, because you'll see a percentage drop in your reach because you're doing that. And LinkedIn is doing, obviously gone down that path to stop people putting those links in.
Yeah, absolutely. So very good information, so it's while it's there's so many rules and you're trying to remember, but they're just great things to know, be aware of as you're posting. So that's where, in the interview, there was so much gold in that sense. So carousels was mentioned a few times. And is that one way that people could be, not get around the link, the external link issue, but I guess showcasing content without links, and again tapping into a lot of other benefits that come with the carousel?
Yeah, well, I found this interesting. I mean, we did talk about the different, you listen to it, but it's the different formats. So format is very important. So we're talking videos, a newsletter, a carousel, a poll, a simple text post. The different formats have different reach. Therefore, the format you use is important. But this is where it gets a bit silly sometimes, is because carousels are the new gold. I think he mentioned at one point they're considered to be the new gold. It's what LinkedIn's really favouring. Then people are just jumping and doing carousels when the content that you're creating for carousels clearly isn't right for carousels as a format. So being aware of what's working is fine, but then shoehorning your content into a format where it's not right is not fine. And I think that makes perfect sense. I mean, we see people doing carousels all over the place. Polls are, I don't know whether polls are any good still, but for a long period of time, because people are engaging with polls, because you have to make it work, and to find the answer, you have to hit the poll and vote. They got a lot of love. So therefore, people were putting out crap polls. I mean, people are stupid sometimes.
Well,
let's face it, they just want to game whatever's there. And I understand it, I get it, but it's a bit frustrating when everyone just follows everything blindly and then it just wrecks it.
No, and the example that Richard gave, or you both talked about, of newsletters, and how they were the big thing. Everyone's doing that, and then everyone's just churning out newsletters for the sake of it, to be doing it, and it dilutes the talent pool, if you like, and soon after one too many, average newsletter, people don't follow newsletters anymore. Maybe they adjusted the algorithm, who knows? But so that is just a great example of we kind of, people are so quick to jump onto the next big thing, or it's all about this, so you've got to be doing that. They're reading all of the 4,000 what you should be doing on LinkedIn carousels and reports to just jump on the next big thing. I think there's also a part of it that's no doubt to be marketing or social media companies that if I can get 300% engagement by doing a carousel, I'll look fantastic in the eyes of my client. And whether it's achieving the ultimate goal.
I understand it, and I think you've got to be smart about it. You've got to be wary of it, and then when it makes sense to do so, do it. I mean, video, they gave a lot of love to video early on, and video doesn't perform as well now, but that doesn't mean you don't do video. Yeah. Video works, and Richard was saying the same thing. He's now doing videos. He doesn't, he's kicking and screaming into the video world on LinkedIn, and now he's doing it, and he's doing it for a reason, and it's not extra reach. It's because it helps build trust. There's no better medium or format than video, and that's why he's doing it, because it helps, I guess, humanize his brand, and we can see him and hear him, and that builds trust and credibility. So, yes, video's not the reach that it used to be, but that's not a reason not to do it, because it serves another purpose. Carousels work well because why do they work well? Because they keep people are engaging with it. So that's a good signal to the algorithm. But unless you're telling a story or you've got this sort of linear thing, otherwise just write, a text post. And I think that's the thing. You've got to look about the people who are the users or the consumers of your content and what's going to be right for them. And I think newsletters got a lot of value to go. If you've built up a good subscriber base on it, I think they're still good, and they allow you to do really long form content. So this has been going on for years. I mean, when articles first came out for LinkedIn, I remember, I won't go back that far, they got gold, they were fantastic. And then all of a sudden you couldn't buy a view, So the message there is format's important, and by all means mix it up and look at what's working and what's, perhaps not. But whatever the best format is for your content that's going to have the greatest effect and build the greatest connection with the audience, well, then that's what you use. So be strategic about it.
Couldn't agree more. Let the content drive the format and not the other way around, and always go first for what your it was a good discussion around reach versus engagement versus conversion. Which is there one more important? Can you start with one, not the other? And they all play a role, and that's the reach component through a lot of these, just awareness of a lot of these changes and best practice. But ultimately, what's going to convert your audience? What's going to get the result that you want, and that's what you let that drive your content, and then use the tools available that are going to best suit that.
100%. Now, I did mention earlier, and this is a stat that I love giving out there because I think he said 5.2% of LinkedIn's members are creating content. And so you can still, if you're going to, people say, oh, it's too many people creating content. It's too much content on there, but 95% of people are lurking. So that gives you an opportunity. But let's look at, because we're talking about, thought leadership and building reputation and credibility on LinkedIn and every other platform for that matter. But for the sake of this interview with Richard, and he talked about his 4 content pillars, and I certainly agree with pretty much with these 100%. He looked at 4 content pillars, and I think people need content pillars or content themes. It's a great way to straighten you up and to think, this is what I'm going to be creating content about. Now, it can be actually about the themes, could be the content topics, but he's talking about pillars as in the type of content that you put out. So they were thought leadership content that makes people think and is useful and helpful and maybe change the way people think about a topic or an issue helps, and that's the bulk of, I think, the content that we want to be putting out there. He also says that if you're out speaking at an event or you're quoted in a publication, then you promote that for personal branding purposes. And I believe that's 100% true. You give people a little bit of that, you've earned the right to speak at I'm on an online summit this week, and I've promoted that a couple of times, and it's a really good summit actually. So I promote it anyway, but the fact that I'm going to promote that. And then the third one was personal stories, because people need to see you every now and then, and so he talks about the videos and the lessons learned and the selfies, and I'm probably adding a few things in there, but that's more the human side of you. And then third-party content, which you mentioned earlier, Brendan, was sharing other people's content, industry news, what's happening trends-wise in your space, and putting a thoughtful comment around that as well. Don't just share it, but put a thoughtful comment. And I agree with all of those. You could break them down even further, but I think that mix is good. Personal, some when I say personal, some behind the scenes stuff, some thought leadership stuff, some utility content that I talk about, and absolutely the sharing of other people's, the content curation side of things as well.
Well, the personal side we've spoken about on many recaps, and it's controversial on LinkedIn. It has been at different times, but no doubt showing a bit more about yourself and your personality is going to make it easier for people to understand what it's like to work with you, which is really the ultimate goal of most activity on LinkedIn. Yep. And that third party part, I think, even becomes more important if more people are doing the bell and bookmarking people they want to speak, want to follow and listen to, and they've only got their smaller list. They're not scrolling through. They become even more important because they will be curating people to those followers who aren't seeing other content because they're not scrolling as much. So to position yourself as someone like that becomes really powerful. So it's an important role.
It's all about, is this a word, intentionality? It is now.
Let's go with it. Yeah,
it's having intention. Being intentional about the content you put out there, being intentional about the people you follow, being intentional about the posts you engage with and the comments you make, being intentional about turning up, being intentional about the format you use. So once you've built that in and it's part of your, DNA ongoing, then you're in a pretty good space, and you're probably doing more than 99% of people on LinkedIn. That's it. That's it. And then there's a little bit of experimentation and, dare I say it, have a little bit of fun. Have fun on LinkedIn. Whoa.
Yeah.
All right. That was episode. I don't even know which episode that was. It was about 2 ago. This is, what did I say? This one was 256, and the other one was about 254, I think, with Richard Blom. So that was we've had a pretty good start to the year. We've had Mark Schaefer. We've had talking all about community, and then Mark Masters from You Are the Media took your spot in the recap spot, and we talked about community. And going back a little bit further, we've had this year we've had Mitch Jackson talking about personal branding in the Web3 world, and the first one episode for this year was episode 250, and that's where I had 17 experts and thought leaders and people who have been previous guests on the show. They were, I asked them the one question: what's working for you in a personal branding or professional marketing sense? And I got 17 contributions back from that, and we weaved them into a bumper episode. So that's 250. There's a lot of eye-opening stuff on that, but we won't delve into that now. If we can just quickly, last week I spoke to or published the episode with Michelle Squared, Michelle B. Griffin, and Michelle J. Raymond. They've written a book, and this won't mean anything to anyone on the podcast, but I'm holding it up now. So on the video, on the live stream, the LinkedIn branding book, The Power of Two, Build Your Personal and Business Brand on LinkedIn for Exponential Growth. It was just a great interview, Brendan. It was just, fantastic to see two people who are really passionate about branding, business branding, personal branding, and LinkedIn, and what you can do on it, and two ladies who have got a lot of value out of LinkedIn, coming together to put their collective experience and knowledge together to write a book that's going to sort of help people. But I think the main why this book's a little bit different is you've got two people writing it for starters, but there's a lot of lessons learned and stories. And so I'm not going to go into their stories now because I won't do them justice. But things like with Michelle J. Raymond, she's become, she's really building we had her on the show late last year. She's building fantastic profile and reputation as a company pages expert guru on LinkedIn, all about LinkedIn company pages. And I do see she was on the podcast with Mike Stelzner on Social Media Examiner recently. So, that's hitting pretty much at the pinnacle in our space. And so, she's gone through this, but she's evolving her brand continually. But it wasn't that long ago. She had no intention about what she was doing. And she tells that story about, how she didn't know what she was doing and needed to get that, that what I stand for, what am I going to, talk about, what am I going to do, that personal branding basics that Michelle Griffin helped her with. So that was a good story. But even Michelle Griffin is really active on LinkedIn, runs a good LinkedIn community as well. She posted every day for a year in 2021, and that helped her become really more confident, and she brought people along for the journey, and that was the community where they all were posting regularly like that. But she procrastinated for years. And how many people procrastinate for years and, what am I going to talk about? I'm not going to go on LinkedIn. What are they going to say? So it's about doing. It's about action, mate. It's about action.
It's another common theme, recurring theme of our discussions. It's a great interview. I'd encourage people to listen to that whole episode. But just as an aside, what a great idea, masterstroke. Two people come together to write a book. I mean, you'd know how hard it is to write a book.
Yep.
If you could spread the mental load, the effort, and then also double your marketing reach through your different audience, it just ticks so many boxes. So I think that's just a simple takeaway from that.
And there was one thing that Michelle Griffin did say, and I loved it. She said, get on LinkedIn, go where the fish are. I'm reading this out because I took a note on it, and then invite them over to your house, which, could be your podcast or your blog and that side of things. And, you've got to expand your world, not just be on LinkedIn. So LinkedIn is a part of it, but it's not the only part, as you and I have talked about often. And, I coach and teach people to, yes, do LinkedIn well, but what's your owned media channel, and should you be on another social channel, and what sort of content you're doing and everything. But I like that. Fish where the fish are, but then invite them over to your house. So I urge people to, that was the last episode, and for people to check that one out. And I think you'll enjoy it as well. So any final words, Brendan?
Less content equals more reach. So this came from Richard, who his experience with sharing his 57-page report, whatever.
Yep. That's right.
So obviously a very weighty tome, packed full of great info, but pretty overwhelming for people, obviously. So the idea of he then put a carousel, funnily enough, but with only 15 points, he got twice as much engagement. So, and someone else who shared his content as a carousel We've got an amazing
we're nuts.
reach. So just that less is more. Perhaps have the report. You can delve into the the detail later. But I think Richard said next time he would lead with, here's the top 15 highlights. Because again, that came through so many times. People are short, keep videos short, 2 minutes, because people are time poor. They don't want to read articles anymore or delve into newsletters. So less is more. Keep it short, get to the point, and have the backup data available. But there's less content equals more reach. Loved it.
All right, Brendan, thank you very much. And we'll see you back in a fortnight's time and with another recap of the Reputation Revolution podcast.
Always a pleasure, Trevor. Thanks for having me.
See you.
The reputation economy is here. The world today needs more genuine, credible experts and leaders to stand up and share their experience, their wisdom, their stories and ideas. Are you in?